Today I've got an absolute great guest, someone I've followed through my life, through my martial arts and upcoming teen years. Movie star legend and martial artist, Loren Avedon. Welcome.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you, Lee.
Thanks for coming on. It's really appreciated. It's amazing to have you on the show.
Awesome, buddy. I'm at your service. Fire away.
Yeah, so Loren, you're obviously very well known for all your martial arts movies, No Treat, No Surrenders, King of the Kickboxers, and also a great martial artist. But before we get into that, could I just roll you back to the beginning a little bit of your sort of background of where you was born, where you was brought up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, basically, I'm a child of a single mother, love child from the 60s. And yeah, I mean, basically, my mom had me because she had met sort of the perfect man for her, right? She didn't want him, but she wanted something from him. So I don't know how she did it, but here I am. So the fact of the matter is what I learned from being in a single parent home and with a woman who was very advanced for her time. She was a creative director, an advertising executive, a producer of television commercials, director, had clients, international clients from all over the world and a lot of American companies. So I was exposed to all of these movie stars and all of these people at a very young age. And I sort of just inhabited the space. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't really care. You know, I was just learning. That's living in LA, right? In a certain way, back in the 60s, 70s, and so forth. So basically, my mom had no designs on me ever following into, you know, acting, or she didn't know what I was going to do. She was just happy I was around. And as I got older, I had tried, you know, so we say the corporate world. I had tried this, I had tried that. But when I walked into the dojo, when I walked into Jun Sheng, this was just after I graduated from high school. So I'm about 17, almost 18. And there's a few chaps I knew that went to this martial arts school. And I really needed some direction. I'm now an adult, you know, I'm about to start college, and I need to learn how to be a man, really. So I walked I'd seen Bruce Lee and all that. I've always wanted to study martial arts. I was an exceptionally good athlete, not so much in the normal sense, like I wasn't good at track. You know, I would come in, you know, second to last or whatever, but I was still developing in that age. So walked into Junsheng, saw this guy fly across, you know, the studio, hit the heavy bag, swing up and hit the ceiling. Well, I was just like, I want to know how to do that, right? I mean, that's just amazing. Plus, I knew some guys who's trained at that studio, and they could hold themselves up against pretty much anybody, right? So I'd seen it physically at Beverly Hills High School, you know, the fights and things like that, right? Typical of any place where there are youngsters and testosterone or whatever. So, you know, got into a great school, Lee. I mean, just like everything in life, my mom was trying to design, you know, an experience for me, right, that was real. She pushed me out the door and said, find your way to school, by the way, when I was in London at 9. You know, she was like, you know, taught me how to trust myself, set me free. Different time, right? Didn't have to worry about your kids so much and oversee them. And besides, she wasn't having that. She wanted me to develop my own self and independence. And the way you do that is you shove them out in the world and let them and see what happens, you know? So she was worried because in those days, they didn't know if you coddled a male or whatever, was he going to grow up and be, shall we say, a bit different in personality, right? So she never coddled me. And the fact of the matter is what I learned from her is how to, you know, how to hold my own. But she couldn't teach me how to be a man. So when I walked into Junsheng, I absolutely fell in love with it. Here's all of these guys that are like, they're walking around like lions, you know, they're just like amazing, you know, specimens of masculinity and of also badasses. So I just fell in love with it as far as the martial arts goes. And when I walked into the dojang, I felt like I was home. I felt like I was in church. I felt like here I am, and I'm just going to be a sponge and soak it all up. And I did. And I excelled at that. And then opportunities came from that. I still studied. Psychology, economics, you know, and then reality. Worked what is now William Morris, but was triad artist, read scripts, thought I was going to be an agent, thought I was going to do this, thought I was going to do that. Anything but being in an office was what I realized. I don't want to be in an office all day under fluorescent lights. I got to figure out how to work this. So first the martial arts. Then the acting just sort of happened because you probably heard this and I've said this a bunch of times, but I was paying for my doctor bill. So we're all at this guy's house, and one of the guys there was an actor. And he said, you should come to my acting class. You'd be good. And I'm like, I don't know about all that stuff. And he said, seriously, you should come. So I did. And I sat there in front of 12 people trying to read some words on a piece of paper, shaking like a leaf. And that bothered me. You know, I was like, I got to master this so I can stand in front of people and deliver a message, or it'll help me in any situation, regardless if I, you know, stand in front of a camera and told where to hit my mark and to say these words and to be believable. I thought it can only help me develop. And then time passes, trip to Africa with my dad, come back, phone rings at the dojang, another phone call at the dojang, right? That's how I got my SAG card. That's how I got to Stunt. That's how I got all of these things, was people calling the karate studio. Because what did you do in 1970, whatever, to find somebody who could also kick and punch and fall down, go boom, whatever, and do it with style and properly? Because the stuntmen at the time, excuse me, weren't exactly so much into the martial arts as they were the stunts. So you could get a stunt guy who could absolutely fall down those stairs, crash that car, you know, do that fall or whatever, but he couldn't kick. So that's kind of how I got into it. I got that call from Roy Haran, and I had been on the Junsheng demo team. I had been, Master Philip Ree's Hapkido dummy with the cane. You know, I knew how to do reactions. I could act and so forth in these various situations. So at that time, I was probably 2.5 years into the Stanislavski Meisner technique acting class. And so it all just happened like it was supposed to happen. Phone call late at night at the dojang, right out of a movie. You know? So, and then I'm in Thailand, and I'm working on my first film, starring in No Retreat, No Surrender 2, Raging Thunder. But even there, we still didn't have the job. We had to do a screen test Matthias and I out in the parking lot of the Ambassador Hotel in Bangkok. And in the midnight before, Yun Kuei had, stopped me in the middle of the hallway there as I had arrived, just fresh off the boat, fresh off the plane, to do some reactions in the hallway. He was like, okay, so string test. Obviously, we know what happened. Passed with flying colors. So did Matthias, and hence the 3-picture deal with Seasonal and those films that I'm so well known for. It's kind of hard to start, honestly, Lee, with the best, and then have to figure it out after your contract expires. Because here I am with the elite of action, really. At those days, in those times, I mean, Chuck Norris was great and all that stuff. Sho Kosugi was great, but now this is a new thing. Chinese action films being made in English for a Western market. So how wacky are these stories? How crazy are these setups? So that's what happened. And still, end of this April, I'll be going for a martial arts expo and whatnot. And people are still, now 3 generations of fans want to see me, which is great. That's a nice thing. Now I've been sort of, in transition or here or there all of these years. Well, people don't know that I went back to stunting. They don't know about life, right? As it pertains to film. You have a certain shelf life, and that shelf life's not over for me, but you're pigeonholed, There's always the next guys. Now look at all these streaming companies and all of this film and all this content. So there's a lot of it's totally different now.
Yeah. For me personally, Loren, I find the older style of the martial arts film so much more interesting and realistic to nowadays, because nowadays I find that the martial artists in there are more like gymnasts, and it's, for me, being a martial artist and watching a film, it's so unrealistic to land a somersault kick and stuff. So for me personally, and I know a lot of martial artists think the same as me, we much prefer to watch a more realistic fight than gymnastics, acrobatics going on.
Well, we have the benefit of actually understanding, what it is. But the younger generation, they're used to these, video games and, comic sort of action heroes. And I mean, I think you can do it if it's done right. I like the way, for example, my buddy JJ did Undisputed 3 with Jai White and with Boyka with Scott Adkins. He used the camera to sort of slow things down, because here's the problem with that karate demo action that you're seeing. There's not enough time for you to absorb a human, to absorb that and to take that moment and go, ooh, and see the reactions. So JJ did that by slowing stuff down and then speeding it up, right? Using the camera in a way that we could never do before. So there's certain films that are okay, because I like seeing someone hit the ground. I like seeing the actual. You can't CGI that well enough.
Yeah.
When stuff starts to get dark, you're like, oh, here comes the drawing. But no, I'm with you. I mean, it looks too much like a karate demo. That's what I say to so many young choreographers, and people like that. I said, this looks like too much of a give and take, man. There's got to be beats. There can't be just this perfect technique and all this stuff in the space. And you can see the little bit of whatever it is, pad or something on the ground for you to roll out on. And they're shooting stuff in 3 weeks now. I mean, it's crazy. I had 3.5 months, for example. So there's a way you do it, though, right? Which accentuates whatever you're trying to get out of the fight scene. Over choreography, for me, I get lost. I sit there and I go, okay, karate demo. And then I check out mentally, because I want to see the really hardcore ground pounding, heads banging, somebody getting hurt, really. I mean, sorry, it sounds terrible, but you have to put a little flesh and blood and sweat, into that so that it looks like it hurts. If it's just people exchanging technique and then wiping their mouth and, going and doing it again, I'm not taken by that. I'd rather watch the one good shot of really low of this guy getting swept and doing it, a flip and a dead man, because now I can see him. I see the ground. I'm like, oh yeah, let's see this. blam, okay, that made the whole fight. Now, what about the rest of it? I don't know. You can leave it on the floor as far as the cutting room floor. So I'm with you, totally with you. And that's something I'm hoping we can bring back. Keith and I, Vitaly, we're trying to put something together. We're trying to do this. We're trying to do that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely missing in the industry now. That sort of
I agree.
Stuff.
I agree wholeheartedly. And there's people that are still kind of doing it, but it gets lost in this whole style and flavor. Oh, we're gonna do Ip Man for the 40th time,
Yeah.
Okay. So it is what it is. I think somebody asked me a question last week or week before. If Ip Man, the first No Retreat, No Surrender, the influence was Bruce Lee's Ghost. So somebody asked me, would it be far-fetched if Ip Man came back and was the ghost for this current or our new No Retreat, No Surrender, and Donnie Yen played Ip Man? And I thought, well, as long as it's not too corny, because what's happened with Ip Man is all of a sudden he's become this Chinese legend. When in truth, yes, he had some, shall we say, role, but he was actually a very humble, little man. And they've blown him up into this giant of Chinese culture. So, okay. So that's how legends are made, right? But I would love to see a resurgence of the more ground pounding, ass kicking, sweat, people are limping around and, it's really hardcore and it. I love that. So I don't know how you get that back into people's heads that are making these films, the youngsters, that it's gotta look like you gotta believe it, and the only way to believe it really is you've got to shoot it right, not be so tight, stop with the wiggly crap, get off the gyros, set it on some sticks, put it wide, do this, do that, and let there be a rhythm, to it. So there isn't that. That's what's missing, in my humble opinion. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%, definitely. Yeah, it's just lost that finesse about it, hasn't it? Lost this sort of culture of fighting.
It's lost that rhythm and that ability for you to really get into the moment and watch these guys, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think as well, it's taken the sort of shine off the martial arts, where it's become more gymnastics. It's sort of taken away
the trickster kick. I get you. I get you.
Yeah.
But that's a phase, that's a fad, that's a thing. It can be done, but it should be an accentuation of, some. It's like if you look at King of the Kickboxers, it's not trickstering, but it's a series of techniques that Billy uses to, basically take out any opponent. And that part of the story, they actually had to fly me back to Hong Kong so I could sit there and block these styrofoam logs, to show that they literally forgot to shoot that. So they flew me back so that I could do that silly stuff. But it ties things in, it makes the audience want to see more. And all of that build up to the crescendo of the two of us. And that, when you look at Billy's legs and when he's kicking, and you see that there's no mini tramp, there's no wires. That's dude jumping, It was insane. So that kind of athleticism too is missing, really.
Yeah,
when you have so many great athletes, but you've always got, shall we say, the standouts, like a Scott Adkins, like a Billy Blanks, like I could play off of that. They made me better, for example, Keith Cook and Billy, and all of these people that I worked with.
To me, that was one of my favourite films as a youngster, King of the Kickboxers. That was the one that got taken off the shelf every day and played. Brilliant film.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's pure entertainment. That, pure entertainment. So
yeah. Can I just ask, Loren? So when you're fighting in them fights, obviously the Chinese films seem to be a lot more hardcore than the sort of the Western-made films. Was there sort of I've seen like interviews with Jackie Chan and stuff. How were the injuries on there? Was there sort of many injuries happening and stuff?
Oh yeah, and you always cover your ass, right? So like in the end, and I've said this before, there's a real punji sticks in the water underneath Billy and
okay.
So yeah, they had real sharpened bamboo sticks. I've got some of the documentary footage I'm going to be going through, so hopefully put that together too, the behind the scenes. But yeah, so I said, could you please replace those? Because I don't know about you, but I could slip off of here. You could slip off of one of these platforms, fall in the water, and become a popsicle.
I mean, to be fair, this sort of day and age nowadays, it's health and safety crazy, isn't it?
I mean, there's no need for that.
Doing that now, but them days,
there's no need for that. So can you put rubber there and this and that? And then when we're fighting and we're doing our thing, basically, I mean, you're sore, you're injured, you're in pain. Billy is amazing because he's doing it, with no pads. He's not able to pad up to take hits and to do this and do that. Whereas I kept my, top on. How am I going to take my top off against Billy Blanks? I mean, that'd almost be a joke fight, Oh, here's Noodle Boy over here. Here's, the thin guy, So it's technique, isn't it? It's the beauty of our technique. We've both got long legs. They couldn't undercrank, how they loved to shoot 22 in those days, to make things clean and fast. They couldn't do that with us a lot. They had to go the opposite way. We were so fast that they couldn't undercrank. And so that was kind of cool. So when you see a lot of the stuff that's slowed down, there's a method to that madness. But most of the stuff, some of it's shot at 22. But some of it they couldn't. Because it wouldn't match, All of a sudden you go, we're so fast already, it becomes like, okay, again, the audience needs to absorb what they're seeing. So there needs to be beats. There needs to be some acting. I need to, he needs to go, like this before he comes into me to give me a second, All of this stuff there's a mindset about that. There's a method about that to set up the next round or the next what's going to happen next. If it all kind of continues in like a machine gun, you're just going at the same time, you can't really take all that in. So beats, bits, acting, try to stand up, and deliver some dialogue. So it becomes from dawn until the sun goes down, an amazing effort, an amazing orchestration, really. And it was hard, dude. It was hot. They're burning this smoke powder that probably I should be getting some sort of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosis later on in life. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's crazy what we went through and carried on to do so. And if you notice Billy in that film, he comes out the first time you see him, they're waiting for me. He's about to hook Bruce Fontaine in the jaw there, and you see he's just massive. But that's the first thing they shot. And then you see the end of the film, and he's leaned down quite a bit, but to his favor, because he still looks massive. And actually, he can jump higher now, without that extra 25, 30 pounds. And we had he was so great to work with. He came to me early in the movie and said, Loren, this is your movie. I want it to be great. I'm going to do everything I can. And I'm like, Billy, I'm so grateful to you because, we're a team. We got to do this together. And I can't be constantly afraid that you're going to take my head off. And I know you could. Because if you notice him, he comes so close to me. Yeah. So close. And we trusted each other, not to affect a really powerful hit. Now he's selling the crap out of it too. And one time I did stick him good in that, tete-a-tete. Where we both do the front kick and I push him back a little bit. Well, the only way that he could go back is if I executed that. So I put more towards his center of gravity. He was like, hey man, that was a good kick. So we're both working off of each other. The more I get hurt, the better you look. The more you get hurt, the better I look, kind of thing. And we're feigning it, but it's not too hard. When it's 110 degrees outside with 99% humidity and the sun is baking you, it's just not that hard. You can really get it, use the moment, get into it. And she was just phenomenal to work with. I mean, the dude was just uncannily incredible and an amazing athlete. So with Keith Cook.
So Loren, can I just ask you there? So, how did you find the transition from martial arts to actually screen working, where you're not actually hitting people?
You're hitting people a lot. believe it or not, but not to the face, usually, not to the head, and sometimes to the head. But, it's all controlled. Well, the thing about it is, as you know, as a fighter, you don't show, you don't telegraph. You don't wind up. You don't show what you're going to do. You sneak in and you use the line of the body and you hit your opponent, or you knock your opponent out, or you set up your opponent with combinations, or you do whatever and you execute. So when you're in a film, the thing that's so important about martial arts is the technique. Obviously, he was a 7-time world karate champion. I was, I think, not quite a second-degree black belt there. So I'm still learning, but technique is like my world. All day I'm teaching technique before in the dojo. All day I'm executing technique, and I'm teaching people the lines. I'm teaching people this is how you kick, and people don't see it, or you're not moving or whatever. So I take that, and then you add the reaction. So hence the demo team, this and that. So martial arts is all about that. Because if you notice in Kung Fu styles or when they're doing exhibition, there are these especially Chinese, when they do their demos with the spear or whatever, you see these guys whipping their heads around, and, that spear is coming awfully close, right? So that's how you transition, is you're doing basically a demo, but under these realistic circumstances, and you've got to spit blood, you've got to spit water, you've got to accentuate it. So that becomes the craft. And then we didn't have playback, so we're not sitting there watching what we did before. No, we're just carrying on, and the guys who are looking are going, no, we got to do that again. And you're just doing that all day. So every once in a while, you got to go, okay, where am I? What are we doing now? Kind of thing. And, but you have to get into that rhythm and flow, and you just that's why you're there. Because you're a great athlete, you can adjust and you can come, that close and not hit somebody, right? But have them take that same end of the whip and give the reaction to it, right? So it's an art. And then at the end of the day, yeah, you've kicked the crap out of each other. I went through so much Da Jiao and Dr. Wong's oil and hot baths, Epsom salts, whatever else. Come on. Here I am, a beanpole in the middle of the jungle. So, I got sick, I got this, well, nobody's going to know that except you. You got to come off permanently forever and ever as this guy, So put that all aside. That's part of the acting bit, isn't it? And it doesn't matter how you feel. It matters how you feel in the moment that the camera's rolling, So that's the discipline. And that's part of martial arts too, isn't it? You've got to control your emotions, your this, your that, and focus. And so having done that for so many years, it was kind of like walking. You just do it.
Yeah, like a second nature bred into you.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes like second nature. And then when you're dealing with these high-level athletes, you've got to trust them, and they've got to trust you, because it's give and take. And there's all, a choreographed sequence. And, you've got to know that if somebody, just to digress from Billy for a minute, but, there's a lot of Thai guys that didn't know really the choreography and couldn't really be shown. And they're not, so sometimes I'd have to hit them, yeah. And the Chinese would say, just hit him, because he's not giving a reaction. And I'd say, okay, fine. And then I would apologize and say, I'm sorry. And they didn't care. The Thais didn't care. So there's a different also thing you can get away with in Asia, honestly, that you can't in the Western set. Like you can't in Hollywood, for example, you can't fire a blank weapon. Don't get me started on Alec Baldwin or all this stuff, but you can't fire a blank weapon in the same shot as the person who would be receiving the hit. Right? You can fudge it. There's all sorts of ways to do it, but in Asia, you can do whatever you want. You better cover your butt, because you better ask that armorer, is that a full load that's going to be fired at my face? Okay, so can you have him point, because camera can't tell whether he's pointing like this or like this if it's right at me. Can you please have him? What's the best angle? And I'll be over here. because I've had a crimp from a blank hit me under my eye.
Yeah.
If it hit me in the eye, I lost the eye.
Blimey.
Yeah. So the thing about it is that's what's going to happen. That was Wanda Acuna, actually. She shot this snub nose 38 out at the airport, no retreat 3. Nobody told her, don't point it right at me. Funk, and I'm feeling this thing running down my face. So after we cut, I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, it's a little blood. What is that? So they took me aside, and the medic dug out a little piece of brass. And they, patted it up and covered it up with makeup, and I carried on. I mean, we're doing a fight scene, so there's not too much, that hasn't been beaten up or scratched up. But yeah, I could have lost my eye that day.
Blimey.
So,
it shows you how dangerous it can be.
Yeah, it's incredible. One of the 10 most dangerous places you can be in the world is on a movie set, and that goes with like diffusing bombs, being on an oil, being a roughneck out in the Arabian Peninsula. Whatever. Think about it. The top 10 most dangerous places you can be is on a set.
That's crazy.
So it is what it is, brother. I mean, you adapt. You adapt. Obviously you're supposed to be there, so that helps you. You develop your confidence. You start to be synergistic. You start to become a part of the sort of the organism, and you kind of know what's going on eventually. But the more you relax. Rightly, the more you relax and you accept the moment, you get into the moment, whatever. What happens is ego's your enemy, anger's your enemy, frustration's your enemy. You're miserable anyway. Accept it. Accept it and be in the moment. So when they roll, and take your moments to rest. That kind of thing. It's just it's a discipline. It's all discipline, isn't it, Lee? Yeah. So without the martial arts, you don't have as much, I guess, experience in being miserable, for lack of a better word. You understand me, though. You just sort of get into it. You're on a mission, all together, a team working for the same goal. So you inspire others, and they inspire you. Like I was always walking around talking to everybody, all the crew, all the the extras, whatever. If I had the time, and I would acknowledge them. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing whatever. And because we're all people at the end of the day, and that's that. So it's amazing the camaraderie and the things that you can get done under very extreme and extraordinary circumstances. So very lucky to have had those experiences.
No, I'll just jump in there where you're talking about what you acknowledge the extras and the others, etc. I think that's a really great attitude to have. I've done a couple of film sets, been on little bits myself, and some of the main actors are just so rude and arrogant. It's unbelievable, but it's great to hear that you actually put yourself out and give time to people. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, we're all there, and we're all in the same boat. So, and I think that's just part of my being raised properly, honestly. And prima donnas, they last about as long as prima donnas do. Nobody wants to work with people like that.
Yeah,
there's somebody waiting at the door, to replace you. So.
Yeah, I think it's especially rude as well when you see them like, the kids that are fans of theirs, and they wait for hours to see them to get a autograph, and they blank them and stuff. It's I don't know, just not very nice, is it?
No, it isn't. And I had an experience with, and I won't say the person's name, or let's just say he's in the rap industry, but I saw him on a set. And I had a chance to do a stunt in this video. Like I was with Joni's stunt service. This is a long story, but you have these answering services when you're a stunt person, and they sort of designate your level in the biz. It's interesting. So I was with Joni's, and looking for a guy to just come onto this gentleman's set and do a quick gaff and get $500. Well, I had seen this gentleman. I hesitate to call him a gentleman. But have a fan come up, and this was on a set somewhere downtown LA. I just happened to be visiting another stuntman about, something, because that's how you used to get work. You'd hustle. You go out during lunches, you introduce yourself to the coordinator, you do this, you do that. And then, a lot of people knew who I was anyway, so it's okay. But this guy insulted this woman. And she was like, "Oh, I love you, so here's my baby." And then he said, "Oh, that's one ugly ass baby," And I was like, is that really necessary? And so I saw him behave that way, and then they were saying, "Loren, why don't you go do this? You pick up $500. I said, I'm going to pass because of the attitude.
Yeah.
And I just didn't need the money that bad. And then I don't want to be around that kind of attitude or that kind of behavior or that kind of person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even as a stuntman, I had a choice to say no, so I did. But you want to be around people that, you respect and you work with. It's a job, I've worked with so many stars and so many people behind the scenes in television and Hollywood and all over the world. And you just, you get to know people and you're doing a job. I went back to stunting because it's the only way I could make $1,200 a day and still show up and, pick my kid up from school, for example.
What were you doing after the sort of films? You just
Yes. I went back to stunting. I, went through, life changes, and I was broke. So, the thing about it is people had been asking me, Loren, why don't you come to Buffy and why don't you come on the set? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And I was like, because once you're in, you're in. You got to kind of make that switch. And then the real stunt guys, they don't respect actors at all. Sorry. But, they don't want an actor stunting. They want a stuntman stunting, right? So anyway, so I broke through those barriers because I would just sell out, Anyway, so the word got around. Well, he knows camera. He knows this. He knows that. He's humble. Okay, hire him. And so I started being able to go back in and work and, do this and do that. And people, I'd show up to set or whatever to hustle, and they'd be like, "What are you doing here?" And I'd say, "I need a job," So that's it. That's part of the humility of martial arts too. Look how I was able to go back to the root and start to work, and these people who really supported me. So all I can tell you is stunt department and people in the industry that are on the other side of the camera, they, like to work with people who know what's going on. And that's that, So I'm so fortunate, really, to be able to have that reputation and knowledge and come in and play with the big boys, really. It's just TV, but that's okay. I can go home now. I don't have to go back and live out of a suitcase. I can go home and pick my daughter up from school later. So there it is. So that's that. We make our choices. We go back to the root. And that's what martial arts allows you to do, doesn't it? Because I'll always train. I will always go back to the basics, because what am I really doing as a martial artist? I'm working on myself. I got into it to learn how to fight and to carry myself as a man and to, be, the warrior. Yeah. Because all of my family come from that warrior class. I'm the first in 6 generations not to put on a uniform and go into war or into battle. And that was just because of my mom. My dad was in the Navy. My grandfather was First Army Air Corps. Her former husband, my mother, was married during World War II, and her guy was an LST driver, an LCI driver, landing craft infantry, landing, support, transport. So one of those things that drops the thing down, like you see in Saving Private Ryan, or you see on D-Day or whatever, Tom Hanks, come on, right? Boom, it comes down. That's what he was driving, and it got blown in half. So she got the telegram. So I'm like, Mom, I want to go in the Navy. She's like, no, you know what I've been through with Granddad, because he was gassed in World War I, had terrible tics his whole life. And then with her husband. Now I'm going to let my boy go into the Navy, because I thought my dad had been in the Navy. I don't have any money for college. I don't have any money for this, blah, blah. Well, I'm glad I didn't go in. I mean, I would have never gotten these movies, right? But it was also her. She couldn't emotionally, right, handle the fact that her son was going to be in uniform. So my uniform was martial arts. My uniform was the dobok, and my warrior journey was with people, and with those people that were interested in perfecting their style, perfecting their way as a human. And that's what I found at Junshan. I found these great philosophers in Philip Rhee and Simon Rhee, and these great people.
Them guys you just mentioned there, Philip and Simon, they're the guys from the film Best of the Best, aren't they?
Correct. And I was supposed to play Chris's part in that, but
oh, really?
I couldn't have. Chris Penn. I couldn't have, because that would have negated me from doing any of the rest of my contract was seasonal.
Oh,
I didn't have an exclusive with them, but I knew that if I did anything else, they weren't going to use me as their star. So I knew that. So I kind of sort of bowed out of that and whatever. And actually, it's a blessing because if you notice that film, the only real martial artists in that film is Philip and Simon.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell, can't you?
Yes, you really can. And I love them. They are the reason for me being who I am today, and Master Chung. And then all of the greats that I met on the journey afterwards. You know, after I left Jun Chung, and an entire journey. I mean, for almost 10 years, I was going with one of the head of the Kukiwan around. He was also part of the WTF, World Taekwondo Federation, but he was sanctioning all tournaments and events in Central and South America. So I got my international. I kept going back into the martial arts, Eagles team, demo team, going overseas to this tournament, to this Pan Am, to this international championships, to this world championships as part of the Kukiwan. Now we see how Olympic Taekwondo has evolved. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like this whatever mat they've got with an octagon on it, and you got to grab each other now and try to, grab the hogu and hit each other with your foot. I mean, it's freaking lame compared to the 80s and 90s Olympic Taekwondo. Trembling shock, wide open space, all of this dynamic kicking technique. That's the beauty of Taekwondo, right? The footwork and the kicks, because it's far too easy to punch somebody in the face. But if you can kick somebody in the face with style and knock them out, isn't that something beautiful to see? And then these guys and they're spinning, whizzing, technique. That's effective. Now you got them coming together, grabbing each other and trying to hit each other with little inside crescent kicks, or one's falling down and he flips a kick up and kicks the other. I mean, sorry, it's totally
down over the years, isn't it?
It's totally gone to. But I was around during the heyday